Hello again for one last time. This is Professor Lucien. This is Safety 380, Introduction to Occupational Safety and Health. We pretty much finished up the actual course content with lecture 24. This is the final lecture, and I just kind of want to review things. But more than that, I don't review sometimes is boring. I'd rather give you some advice, just some things that I've been thinking about quite a bit. In pertaining not only to careers in safety, but I know many of you are not safety majors, so I'm going to try to provide you all with life lessons. Okay, I was in preparation for this. I was reviewing the responses that I received from you early in the semester. I don't know if you even remember taking that survey, and just a few of you were planning to graduate here in the next month. More were in the future, either later this year or in the coming years. And when asked, what do you want to learn from this class? Many of you said, learn to become more proficient with using OSHA's website or OSHA standards. And I hope that you gained an appreciation for the standards and the skill to properly search and cite them. But I want to go back to my original statement that OSHA is the minimum we do in this field. It's a reference point, a starting point. That's about it. We identify something that could harm somebody. We assess as far as what is required. We come up with solutions, but we should always try to go above and beyond. You could have a workplace that is 100% compliant with OSHA standards. People could still get killed or seriously injured. So it's not a guarantee by any means. And I hope that came across over the last 15 weeks or whatever it's been, that safety is more complex than that. And as I've said earlier, my philosophy on safety, my number one principle is that safety is an attribute of work. That I study the work. And what I mean by that is the individual who's performing the job and their interaction with the materials they're working with, the environment they're in, what they perceive as what needs to get done and how fast it needs to get done, how they interact with their supervisor and coworkers, and what sort of feedback they gain. So safety is much more complex than just evaluating hazards and making recommendations. But you have to start somewhere. Again, it's back to the start, back to the minimum. That's the minimum we do. And if you're going to pursue a degree in this field, you'll learn that in the other courses. Again, this is the intro class. So I like to build a strong foundation, an appreciation for the profession and what we do, why we do what we do, the basics of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration and the laws, and then where we can find information about what causes injuries and fatalities. And then we went into the primary causes. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of this class, what it provides, and what I hear from many of you week in and week out. It's a pleasure that you're taking a lesson, and then the assignment each week, you're bringing things in your lives that you've experienced, and I think that's fantastic. I think that's a great way to learn, is to connect to the material. Of course, we've got the quizzes to make sure you guys are doing the readings and stuff, and maybe some of you are just good test takers. That's all right, but I'm at least exposing you to a wide variety, not the depth that I'd like, but a wide variety of topics. And if it helps you, in your life, fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about, I'd rather talk about the recommendations first, my advice, if you want to take it. I'm not a sage by any stretch of the definition. First is, I'm a big believer of reflection, but don't do too much of it. Reflection is thinking of the past, putting what you've done in the past to what you're doing now, putting it in context. Reflection generates wisdom, lessons learned. What can I do next to avoid the things that I don't want to happen, or what can I do to make the things I want to happen come to be? And that aligns itself with planning for the future as well. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? And if that question is if the answer is I don't know, then pursue it. I've got a daughter who's a freshman, and anytime she expresses an interest in a particular field, I want her to talk to somebody who works in that field, or to have her go observe, for a day. What's a day like? That's something that was never afforded to me, so it took me longer to figure out what I wanted to do. So it's good to have experiences and observations and mentors and coaches throughout your career. Not that I have to have a clear path of what I want to do, but just to have a better understanding. So what do you want to do? Where do you want to be? If you don't know, start talking to people. Gain experience so that you can make more of an educated decision, because deciding what you want to do, that's important. So you should be thinking about it. The next is, and aligns with that, is learning. In this field, my profession has adopted this concept of a safety culture. I don't believe in it. I believe in a learning culture. A learning culture does not assign blame. What it does is it tries to understand the critical factors that led to an undesired outcome or a desired outcome, and then attempts to pursue those criterion in order to either prevent a bad thing or to ensure a good thing happening. And so I am constantly learning. I'm constantly learning from all of you. Every semester I learn a little bit more about the lives of my students and what can get in the way, and what sort of resilience you display, and what resilience and adaptability, that's not the right term, I have to engage in order to meet your specific needs, learning needs. And it's interesting to me. Recently I had to speak at the first year program for faculty. I got invited, and my views are very different from my colleagues, because I have one foot out in industry, because I want to keep current on what they're experiencing, what they want from my students, so that I can incorporate that into my lesson plan, so that they're better prepared for what's going on in the real world. So over break, I went and toured a facility with a former student, and he was showing me the equipment and the process, but I wasn't looking at that. I was looking at the people's faces, kind of looking in their eyes to see what message are they delivering to me when I made eye contact. How are they interacting with each other? When they saw us coming, what was their reaction? And just in general, were they focused on their work, or were they focused on other things? And then also the smells. I don't know about you, my olfactory gland is very trained to smell certain things, and I could smell metal fume here, I could smell paint vapor here, and so I knew what departments we'd be coming into well before we got there. And so there's just little things that I try to gain from my experiences, and it either confirms my beliefs or makes me think more about it. And hopefully all of you are going to be gaining that kind of knowledge. Another thing with reflection is not all lessons are direct. Not all the things you do today will affect what happens tomorrow. Some things are indirect. And I've learned that as education, as certain professional memberships have focused primarily only on the direct. If we do this, we get that. What they're doing is they're neglecting the indirect. The relationships that are developed, the reputations that are developed. And I fear that their successes or their effectiveness are gonna decline, because they're not doing the extra things that really drive improvement. But it's not a direct improvement. It's a secondary or tertiary, which may in certain times persevere over slow times, or become in a way that you could measure it as a direct, but people don't see it direct. So first lesson was things are complex. The other is there are some things you need to do that don't seem like it's going to immediately or directly affect what you want, but it does. Next is listen. People don't listen enough. I know that you know when you're growing up, you got 2 ears and one mouth, so use them. People aren't listening enough. People are just talking too much. At least in my field, too many people are just yapping away. Look at me, listen to what I have to say, and when I do, I'm not impressed. I'm not hearing anything new. I'm not hearing it in a context, but still people are gobbling it up, and I don't understand that. The next thing I want to talk about is balance. That was a lesson that my advisors in graduate school tried to teach to me, and it did not stick. The fabric I'm cut from is to work your butt off, and when you do, good things will happen. So I've overworked myself several times. You might say that's a good thing, but when you're overworked, things tend to build up. You need time to breathe, recover. That's the word I wanted. But I've learned it. That's a lesson that took me a long time to learn, but I've got it now. And I wish that upon for all of you, that do what you need to do, but take time for yourself. Take time for relationships. Take time for rest and recovery. You have to. It's so important. I didn't believe it for a long time. So you're in a position where you're like, no, I can't do that. Do what needs to get done, but make sure that you take time for yourself. That's really, really important. Take time to really think about the big decisions in life. I talked about career, but big purchases, big commitments. Think it through, and try to do it as objectively as possible. Because sometimes subjectivity or heuristics can drive us to a decision which seems right, but I like to think things through. But I'm very analytical. It works for me. That I get it down on paper, it seems to work. Now I want to just finish up here, and I'm sorry this has gone as long as it has. I talk way too much, I know. It's probably the biggest comment I'm going to get from all of you. Gosh, he just does not shut up in his videos. Listen more. Some things about the safety profession that I've noticed. And I've been in it for, I think I'm going on 27 years now. I've been practicing safety right out of undergrad. And my initial focus was compliance. And then it went to a more broader approach of focusing on the work, getting the people successful. And there are some approaches there are some people in the field I like to listen to. They're enlarging the problem, and I think that's. As an engineer, I'm a problem solver, but I'm also efficiency expert. That's one thing I learned in grad school. That if a problem just seems too difficult to solve, you enlarge it. Try to understand it from a bigger perspective, a greater context, and in doing so, you see how there are other factors that are contributing to it, which may be indirect. Getting back to my earlier comment. Then you're able to actually do something to manipulate, mitigate, mediate. It sounds like a lyric from a song, and actually cause change, improve things. And so that's, and I think that my teaching style may be a little bit different than what you're experiencing, but my enlarging of what these lessons are, I think, is what helps me make it more relatable, more real world than the theoretical stuff that you get in other classes. That it's difficult to connect to. Therefore, sure, you can rote memorize and regurgitate for quizzes and exams to get a good grade, but what do you take with you? I try to fill up your mental suitcase in this class. So it's something you can take with you, something you can connect with, something that you can appreciate in the future. Because honestly, we all have to deal every day with decisions that could affect our safety or health, or safety health of the ones we care for. I don't think the safety field is thinking enough. I don't think the safety field is listening enough. I don't think it's defining its problems properly. I think they define them outside of context. They oversimplify. If you oversimplify a complex problem, you won't solve it. You may some of the time, because a broken clock is correct twice a day. But I love that saying. But you have to, each issue deserves an individual assessment, consideration. The saying in grad school was, what you don't know, you don't know. So I even question my perception of things. And in doing so, I ask questions and I try to learn better what's really going on, enlarging, expanding the context. And that has served me so far. I mean, at least if I make a mistake, I can learn from it and try not to repeat that mistake. A lesson that a lot of people you probably know, family members, friends, they don't do. And so success tends to come through continuous improvement. You can still fail and be successful because you're learning from it. I think that's a good learning or good approach to life. The last is I don't think safety has done a very good job of reflecting, learning, and applying balance to be successful. I think that sometimes they get lucky in safety because it's such a rare occurrence for the exposure atypically. In humans, we tend to operate more on a heuristic basis, sort of a satisfying decision-making methodology that we're right most of the time. Therefore, that's why we keep doing it. But I think we can be better. I think that workplaces need to be more resilient, more adaptive. They need to be listening more and attempting to learn. And then themselves practicing more of a balance to things and not a hyper focus on profit or the hyper focus on market share and things like that. Sure, we can define that as success, but is it limited short-term success, or do you want, are you contributing to a bigger cause, a bigger outcome? And I think that's a better way to go in life. That focus on the bigger. Sometimes, especially when things are hard, it's better to be thinking about the bigger and just try to handle what you can. But I guess the last thing I want to bring up is the relationships. This field, the safety field, we're all pretty close to each other. It's really interesting that the people who practice, I talk to them. The people, they're recognizing the leaders in safety. I just talked to them on the phone, or I just got an email from them the other day. We're all so close and tightly knit. And the people at the top tend to not have the big egos. It's the social media hounds that have the big egos, and they're just barking. They're chirping like big birds. They're not really giving us anything new. The intelligent ones, the wise ones, they don't bark or chirp. They're there to support others, and that's what I like to see. So I think safety is going to continue to evolve. I don't think we need some sort of superstar to save the day. I think we just need to better understand the work we're doing and seek these things I talked about: reflection, learning, balance, which hope all of you understand that sometimes the decisions you make, you should listen more. Learn from the mistakes that have happened in the past. And sometimes the things you do may not seem like there's a direct, feedback or a direct improvement, but sometimes an accumulation of indirects is what will really get you where you want to be. I hope you enjoyed this class. I do enjoy teaching it. I enjoy, seeing your work every week. It really, I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. Please reach out to me if you ever have any questions or comments. Find me on LinkedIn. You saw my YouTube channel. That's where we taught the class mostly. I'm continuously evolving my courses to try to even make them more relatable, more real world. This one way longer than I thought. But again, enjoyed having you for this semester. Thank you. And I wish you all the best in your careers, no matter where it takes you.